Hello everyone, I'm John Martinez, back with part 4 of the procedural building tutorial. On the last part, we actually built all of our modules for our building so that we could control it procedurally and make whatever size and not really shape, but sort of shape that we want for our building, windows, all that fun stuff. In this part of the tutorial, we are going to be adding a little bit of extra touches. We're going to be adding in a door that you can, again, procedurally control, place it wherever you want to on the building, and a little overhang on top of the building as well. And if you want to start with this project file that I have here, instead of having to go back into the beginning and make it all yourself, or if you just want to finish with what we did last week and not move on to this part, this project file as it stands right here will be up on Patreon for you to download as well. So without any further ado, let's get into it. So let's go ahead and start working on the door. We're going to do kind of the same thing we did last week with the modules where we just built it up here on the outside and then we'll put it into the group later. What we're going to do is start with a grid. Let's add that in there and just Alt-Shift, right-click, and so we can just view this grid by itself. This will be the basis for our door frame. And we can go ahead and just combine that with a plain old cube in a join geometry. And this will allow us to actually kind of see what we're doing. Look at those two together and add in a transform and just shift this over by 0.5 meters along the x-axis, kind of like, again, what we did last week where we want the center of the thing to be along the edge of our cube right here. So we want to be able to procedurally control the depth of our door frame, the height of it, and the width of it as well. And that's going to be a little bit different from the windows because this time, rather than it being centered along our side here like this, it's actually going to be starting from the bottom and going up. So when you increase the height, we're not going to be increasing it from the central point, so we can't just scale it like we did last week. We're going to have to actually do a little bit more modifications. That's why we're doing a grid, because what we're going to do is actually move this down so that it is -0.5 along the z-axis. So it's actually starting on the ground like this, and we're just going to extrude it upwards. So first we want to be able to actually, resize this thing. Let's add in a group input just so we can get our controls here. We want to be able to resize this along the y-axis here. We want to control the width of it along y. So let's just add an input like this and just hook it directly to the y-axis. And now we have this control right here that we can use for that. Then we want to be able to control the extrusion of it as well. So we'll add in an extrude mesh node. And the offset scale of this is going to be the height of it, like so. Again, we can just hook up a connection directly to there and that will control it as well. Let's go ahead and rename these to door width and door height. And this is kind of the outline of that as well. And let's actually just go ahead and add in our depth control as well. So this one will allow us to kind of scale it along the x-axis, which will control how deep it looks. Rename this to door depth. And I want to move that up a little bit just because that's how I did it before. Anyways, so now we have the outer frame here that we can procedurally control the shape of it, but we want to be able to cut away at the inside of it. And we're going to do pretty much the exact same thing we did with our windows as well, where we're just going to use a mesh boolean. Hook that up there, and then we're going to use basically this setup as well. Just duplicate. Let's move this up a little bit. So we'll duplicate these, Control-Shift-D. We don't want to duplicate all of them, just these three. Control-Shift-D, move these down. So if we hook that up, it does a little bit of a weird something here because it's just basically trying to subtract it from itself. So we need to add a little bit of a modifier in here and so that we can make it smaller along the width and height axes. So we'll change this one to subtract. And now we have something that looks a bit like that. Do the same thing here for our offset scale on the top, and Again, we can make it taller and shorter as we need. So let's just hook up a value to both of those. Same value. This will be our frame thickness. If I can spell thickness right. Close enough. So as we increase this, it's going to be subtracting more and more from the size and the height of the thing. So it'll do that. So you'll notice that it has these weird little triangles going across the front of it that we want to get rid of. And that's just because Blender doesn't handle mesh booleans with planes very well, and the grids are just a plane. And we could fix that by just taking a math node and putting it in there. Rather than subtracting, we are going to add literally any number like that, and then get sort of those triangles. But now we have a line going down the middle here, and if we look at it by itself, there's also a line going down this way as well, and that's just because we have 3 vertices. So let's change all of these to 2, change this one to 2 as well, and now we have a door frame that is procedurally controlled depth, width, height, and frame thickness. But the thickness of the frame is not even. On the top, it's actually twice as thick as it is on the sides here. And that's because the thickness value, the frame thickness value, is being split across the 2 side values, but on the top, it's all being concentrated on one side. So just add one more math node here, take our frame thickness and divide it by 2. Because again, it's just distributing it across 2 places here on the sides, but on the top it is not. So we can just divide by 2 and get rid of that extra little bit of thickness right there. All right, and that looks pretty good. We can procedurally control the depth, width, height, and all that stuff. But if you look at the bottom here, you'll see that the faces are open, and that's just because the extrusion, when you do that, it leaves these gaps here at the bottom. It doesn't actually leave it filled in like that because we are extruding a plane. I don't know what's causing it, but that's just what it does. It's gonna be on the ground floor, and so you're not gonna see it, and you don't really need to worry about it. I'm just gonna leave it as is. All right, so that is how we make our door. Let's go ahead and do a little bit of movie magic to clean it up. All right, so that's our door module. What we're gonna do is we're actually just going to go ahead and disconnect all that, and that messes everything up. But we will Control X to cut it out of there, come into our modules group, and we will just add it here by coming to our groups and take our door module, just plug it in there. Let's go ahead and actually just hide all of these things like that. Make it a lot smaller and easier to work with. And then we will just add in all of the same stuff that we had before. To make it easier on ourselves, let's just go ahead and rename these. I'll fast forward through this. And we will hook these up one by one to the output here. It's a tedious process, I know, but it must be done. This is the one bad thing about working with all these node groups here, is that every time you go in a layer, you have to, if you don't plan ahead, you have to make all these connections over and over, and it is no fun. Let's go ahead and hook it up to our join geometry right here, and we're going to have a little bit of an issue again because we have not converted this to an instance. So we will geometry to instance right here, add it in there like that. And that should be good to go for our door module. Come back out here like this, and that should be ready to go. But if we select it like that, we're not gonna ever see it because we don't actually have anywhere to put it. So before we can actually add in our switch for this, we need another switch for that. Before we can do that, we actually need to figure out what the actual index is for this one. And that's going to be, one more than whatever that is. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So when we build in our conditions for this, we're going to need to make sure that it is selecting for index 8. So we will go back on out to our top level, then come into our module selection node. Hop in there by pressing tab, and let's add in our index right here. So first we want to do is take the index of our position, because again, this is going to be selecting for a single point somewhere on this mesh, preferably on the bottom floor. And we're going to be doing that by selecting it via the index. We're going to add our own integer index selection down here so that we can just click to wherever we want it to be. So let's go ahead and just add in a compare node. We're going to compare the index of any given point along the base mesh. This is, remember, for the base mesh, not for the meshes that we're instancing on top of it. We're going to take the index of that and then compare it to some value here. We don't know what it's going to be yet, but we'll go ahead and add an input for that. So we'll go ahead and just call this the door selection. And let's add in a little switch so that we can actually get a result via this comparison here. Let's move all this over a little bit, add in a switch, plug the previous one into the false output, and then in the true output, we want index number 8, or not index number, instance index number 8. So whenever this is true, it will output a door like that. If we toggle it back and forth manually, that's what we get. So let's go ahead and just hook up this one. The result of this, hook that up there like that. And right now it's outputting a true for everything because it's all greater than, but what we want is to actually make this equal to, so that only when the door selection number that we choose is equal to the index of any given point will that point instance the door module. So let's head back on out to our group input right here, and let's hook this up to just any random old input like that. We have our door selection that we can use here on the outside of these geometry nodes. Let's go ahead and reset this type to an integer so that we don't have to deal with any float values like that. And now, as you can see, it's creating our door that we want right there. If we increase it, the door moves along like that. And then it disappears right there, but that's because if you remember how your indexes work, it just goes around like that. If we look at it from the top down view, I don't know if this is facing the right direction, but the index of the points goes 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on and so forth. And then when it reaches the end of it like that, then it redoes the whole thing on the second level, third level, so on and so forth, like that. So actually, if we were to increase our door selection number sufficiently high, it would in fact actually instance the door on the next level up here. But we don't want that. There's actually no way to set a hard limit on here. You could set a max value right here, but that doesn't dynamically respond to the number of vertices, because obviously, if you change your resolution along the X or Y axis, then the index of any given point will be different, and the maximum number of points on the floor will also be different. Anyways, I'm kind of ranting a little bit, so let's just get into this a little bit. So let's get to the chase a little bit. If we set our selection to 0, if we set our selection to 0, then we have our door sitting in this corner right here, and you can leave it at that, so that as you increase it just goes around like that. But for reasons unbeknownst to me, I want the door to actually start on this side rather than this side. I want it to start on the positive y-axis here, so that whenever this is set to 0, rather than being right there, the door will be here, and then it'll increase going that way, like that, from 0. So the way we're going to kind of recalibrate so that this point right here is 0 rather than this one over here is with a little bit of math. Let's add in a subtract node here, duplicate it, and switch this one to a multiply add. We're going to take this group input right here and add in one right there and one to that one right there. If you can't tell, I hooked one up to the value, the top one right there, and the second one, it goes into the multiplier connection of the multiply add. We will rename this one to the X resolution or X value, whatever you want to call that. This next one we will call the Y resolution. Why am I doing this? I don't know. And we will take our door selection, hook it up to the add end, and take this subtract, connect it to there. And so let's go ahead and just take our vertices, hook it up to the X and Y resolutions. So if we set our subtract to 1, so that we're subtracting 1 right there. So if we go ahead and just switch it so that we're taking it from here, it still does not work properly because we have the door set to 0, but it's way over here. And that is because I switched the X and Y. The X should be going over here and the Y should be going over there. Now it's set properly. It's here on the corner, and as I increase it, it's going this way. Again, you know, is this necessary? No, it is absolutely not necessary. The front of your building could be on this side. I don't know why I did this. It's just a little extra math here that I did for no good reason. All right, now that we have the door properly set, more or less, you know, obviously in the corners, it's not strictly correct because it's just a blank wall on one side. Could add another piece there, like a door, another door, or maybe a window. I'm not going to bother with it because I never really have the door on the corner piece. I always figure it goes somewhere in the middle. Feel free to add something there. If you do that, then that means you'll probably need another layer of this that also takes a corner piece into account. So that way, you know, using extra vertices, and then when it's in the middle like this, it's just a regular door. And then you'll need an additional door module for a door module corner, kind of like what we have there. Anyways, the door is finished and that is ready to go all procedurally like that. So now we can start working on the overhang that I was telling you about down up here. Going to erase all of that and let's get started on the overhang. Overhang is going to be actually pretty simple. I hesitate to say simple because it never ends up being simple. For this one, we're actually just going to work straight in the roof edge module here. We're not going to do anything outside on the main mezzanine level, if you will. So let's go into the roof edge group and look at just the roof edge. All right, so here's our roof edge module. This is why we have different modules for all the different pieces, because we are going to be modifying it directly in here and not modifying the window base or anything like that. So this will be pretty similar to what we did before with the door, where we're just going to use a grid, change it however we want it to be, and then just extrude it upward a little bit. So let's add in a set position, not a set ID, a set position. So we will add in a set position, connect that to there, and add an extrude mesh and connect it to there and connect that to the join geometry. And you see it makes it stick up a little bit, and that's because it's actually starting from a elevation of 0 and then extruding upwards by 1 unit like that. So first thing we're going to want to do is start it actually at the same level as the top of our window base stuff, before we had all that hooked up. We want it to start up here instead. So we'll need to move this upwards by 0.5, and now it's just doubling it like that. Let's go ahead and just decrease that quite a bit, and we can start working on all of the inputs that we're going to be needing for this. So we're going to want to control the size of this grid along the x-axis and the offset like that. But when we control the size, you can see that it's actually extruding out sideways, not extruding, but you get the point. And we can control that by having a combine XYZ. Hook this up to the offset and just change this back to 0.5 right there. And then whatever value we use for here, we can do a little bit of math to make it so that it's actually shifting over a little bit so that it's not sticking out the back like that. So let's add in a couple math nodes right here. We'll hook this up here and hook this up to the x-axis, and we'll just add 1 right here. And then we will just duplicate this and set this one to multiply. Connect this to here, and we will multiply by 0.5 and hook it up to the x-axis. Now, as this number increases, it's going to be sticking out a little bit on this side and this side because, it's centered right there along 0. But by multiplying by 0.5 and then putting that into our offset, for every unit that we increase, we are going to be also shifting it over by half of that amount, which, because it's being split across 2 places, half that amount means we're just going to be moving it over by this amount, so that it should always line up along the edge right there. So if we increase it like this, you can see that it's starting to stick out along there, but it is not sticking out any along the back like that. Good. So now we can just add in another value for this offset scale here. And voila, we have these 2 controls right here. And we'll just go ahead and replace these with some inputs into this group. Add one there and replace that one right there. We can delete those and we will call these overhang depth and overhang height. Now, if we go back out, and unfortunately we have to do the whole tracing everything back again, just like we did with the door, hook those up to there and hook these up to here. So now we have these controls on the outside and we can control the height and depth of this overhang. Beautiful. Let's go ahead and head back into our roof edge group right here. Take this little node setup, create a group out of these, and rename these as well to overhang height and depth. And then we will take and we'll rename the group to the overhang and take this group, tab out, and head over to the roof edge corner because we again need to do this for the roof edge, and paste it in here. Connect up that again. See, this is why you should plan ahead so we don't have to keep doing all these connections like this. Hook these up to the overhang height and depth. And let's look at this one. It's going to look, exactly the same as the other one, but we don't want that because, we have a window on this side. So we're going to want to actually extrude it out along this edge as well. And actually, before I forget real quick, on these, we also have the similar thing, what we did with the door with the empty bottoms. So we need to fix that, first of all, by changing this to 2 so that we don't have that line in the middle, and add in a join geometry at the end here. And this time we can actually just hook up this grid, not from there, we'll hook it up from here to the join geometry, and it got rid of that hole. Take our set position, hook it up there, and that'll just fill it in before we, or after we extrude it. It'll just kind of replace that and put it back in there. All right, so that works really well for, the original one, but we still need to address this lack of overhang on the other side on the corner here. So create a single user copy by clicking that number right there. Rename this one to overhang corner. And let's do a little bit of a modification on this one. It's going to be really simple and easy to do. We're just going to hook this up to the y-axis as well. So now it's increasing along y. And then we're also going to shift it along the negative y-axis here. So we need a multiply, hook that up there, and just multiply this by -1. Then hook this up to the y-axis, and now it works. Because if we don't multiply by -1, then it's actually going to be shifting it the wrong direction, and we need it to come out this way. So multiply by -1, and it comes out the right direction. And now we have overhangs that work really well. So let's go all the way back out to the main level and look at the entire building as it stands right now. So we have our door that we just put in, we have our overhang, and this building is really coming along. It's almost ready. One more thing, since we've added this little extrusion on the top of our building, We just need to add a similar thing to the middle here for our main roof area. So let's take our roof and convert this one to a node group. So let's just node group that thing. And then just add a little bit of an extrusion to the top of it so that it works better. So let's take a normal, add in a separate XYZ, hook that up there like that, and a compare node, because right here we just want to select the top face like that, hook our Z up to there, and we want our Z to be greater than, 0. So if it's 0, then it's going to be anything below that is not going to be what we want. Anyways, add in an extrude mesh, plug it in there, plug this into the selection, and let's just take a look at it just to make sure that this is the only one working. If we do it like, if we get rid of that, then obviously it's extruding all of the faces, which we don't want. Plug this in there. Now it's only extruding the top one. And then the offset scale will be our overhang height. Like that. So come out here, take our node group, and then just plug in the overhang height to there. There we go. We're back out in the main mezzanine level here, and we now have a fully realized building that is completely procedurally built. So that is the end of this video. We now have a fully procedural building that, at least the mesh of one anyways, that we can use for whatever we want it to. We don't have materials yet, so we will work on that in the next video. Before we can do that though, we'll have to do a little bit of modifications so that we can actually add materials separately to the windows, door frame, window frames, tops, and all that stuff. We're gonna have to modify our little base units here a little bit to make that work. We'll get to that in the next one. I'll see you on the next video. Bye-bye. All right, so here we are after the video, and I'm just gonna be doing what I have apparently has become a tradition in this sort of thing, where I just clean it up and talk for 10-20 minutes and make it look, decent. I don't know. I feel like the very first video, I put a lot of effort into making sure this was perfect, and then I have very inconsistent levels of energy with this, Like I want it to look good, because I think I said in the very first video that I was not going to be providing this project file to you all on Patreon, and that I was going to provide the original one, but as I'm working on this, I think I'm going to do this one because I keep on making changes as I'm doing this. This is not the same as it was in the original project file. This right here, it's ugly. I don't like it. Not much I can do about that though. All right, so those are all fine. We need to rename this one to roof. All right, this is horrifyingly ugly, but there's not much I can do about that because, there's so many inputs here. And this is why I did the node groups, because this is much cleaner than this. So let's go into our door module and kind of clean this one up a little bit. Did I even finish my thought with the Patreon thing? I probably did. In case I didn't though, because I forget things. Anyways, I'm going to probably provide this one on Patreon rather than the original project file because this one is better. Because I've done work on this one. And it's different. There's slight differences. Like for example, this door here, originally, on the original project file, this was actually a cube rather than a grid. Kind of like what I did for the windows. This was more like what I did for the windows, where I had a cube, and then I had done a bunch of booleans to select only the top face and extrude outward, kind of like what I did at the center of the roof here. I had a bunch of booleans to select only the top face, extrude it upwards, not extrude, but set position it upwards. It was kind of messy. It wasn't really messy. It was still pretty clean, but it was unnecessarily complex is what it was. And we will hook this one. This is right. Yeah, this is right. Okay. Sorry, that zoned out for a bit. Scale this along Y. Scale these two along Y. Actually, no. I need to scale this one along Y. Like so. And this one. Alright, those are lined up pretty good. Let's move all these up a little bit. Take all this, move it down. We'll just make it level across this line right here. So first things first, I need to level that out. Then take all these, level it out to that. Something like that. And then and plus this way, you know, to the people who stuck around for the whole thing, they actually get the thing that they see me making rather than you know, something that the thing I'm making is based on. If that makes any sense whatsoever. Probably not. There, put these up here like that. And I can't really see what's going on. Okay. There we go. All right, so that looks pretty good. Let's straighten these all out. Straighten X. That one. Scale on X to 0. Wait, I need to get that one as well. And this one. Like that. I don't know. You know, I haven't actually checked to see if people are watching these on the new one. You know, like I like telling you when I'm recording this, apparently. I am recording this tutorial on the day after the second one was published. So the second one was published yesterday for me when I'm recording this currently. And I haven't looked at the analytics for that one a whole lot. I do know that it is underperforming relative to the first one, but I don't know if people are watching this little end blip like they did on the first one. So maybe it was just an outlier on the first one and people aren't actually watching this, but I don't know because I haven't checked it. I'll probably check after I finish recording this. All right, that looks decent. Move these up a little bit, right there. Move these over. I think that looks pretty good. And I'll just leave that for now because this will change, like I mentioned at the end of the video. It'll be a little bit different. So I'm going to scale that along the Y. Anyways, okay, so that is the door module. Now I need to fix the roof edge and roof edge corner because I did those separately. Oh, I regret. So I have to do these separately too. Okay, take all those and that one, scale Y0. Take these and that one, scale Y0. Move it down and scale these along X, scale these along X, bring these in like that. Actually, I guess I don't need that point right there. Okay, scale these along the X like that, bring it down, and level it off. Like I said before, this is relatively cathartic for me, that's why I do it. So I'm not talking a whole lot right now. I don't know, I just kind of run out of things to say. I mean, I've been doing this for 4 videos now, right? I guess I'm on the 4th video. Kind of run out of things to say that you haven't heard before, and I don't want it to get repetitive. It's just me talking. After all, it's not like I have anything interesting to say. Unless you find what I say interesting, in which case, you're welcome. There you go. That's good. Looks good to me. Come out of there. This looks ugly. So let's add a little bit of stuff here for the... Don't say it. I said stuff again. You may not even notice that I say that a lot. But I do because, like I said, I'm recording this the day after the second one released, which, if you're paying attention, means I'm recording this the day after the previous video, part 3? Yeah, part 3. I recorded that one yesterday. And in case you don't remember, part 3 was where I was kind of going on about how I keep saying stuff, and it's not it wasn't a pleasant experience for me. So anyways, that's why I was like, don't say it. Don't you say it. Because I'm having difficulties here. But I'm getting this tutorial recorded for you, and I am happy about that at the very least. And making it look neat, because why not? All right, that looks good. Let's actually move this down. Skip this one over. Skip this over. Scale these along X. Bring this over there. And let's make these scale on Y. These over like that. This one there. So yes, you are listening to the unfortunate inner workings of my inner monologue, which, it's a thing. It's a whole thing. That's roof edge. Now roof edge corner. You need to do the same thing here that we did. This one's a little bit more complex, but we'll kind of just do the same deal. Similar deal anyways, not maybe not the same deal. Okay, and then scale these and that one along Y. Maybe not along Y. Yeah, whatever. Move it away, move that one over. Here I will need additional control points because this has to go a bit lower than it did before on account of the additional nodes. Even though I have headphones on when I'm making these recordings, I can't really hear myself properly. I'm just hearing what it normally sounds like to myself, I think, for the most part. So I don't know what this sounds like. I only find out after the fact. Why does that not look right? Oh well, it's correct. Just move that up a little bit. Move this in. And then move this in. And move these up. I guess move this one up first. That looks pretty straight. All right. And that looks good to me. So we'll come out of here and do the same thing we did before. Make it look a little neater. Take this one right here, scale along X, bring it over. Take the next one and that one, scale along X. Yeah, you know what? I do think this has gotten progressively less entertaining as this goes on. I'm not making as many funny remarks, quips, or personal jokes about myself, or really providing any more information other than just kind of me talking about how it's not being entertaining. Huh. Alright. So here. Yeah, it's certainly a lot quieter today. At least I'm a lot. I'm a lot quieter. Couldn't tell you why. Just the way I am today. I apologize for that. Perhaps it has something to do with the fact that it is like 79 degrees in here right now. So I turn off the air conditioner so I can record these videos. And let me tell you, it gets warm because it is summer. It is definitely summer right now. All right. That looks pretty good. One last thing. That's not in a good place. I don't know. I'll fix that later. That's decent for now. All right, whatever. It's done. Yeah. Have a good day. See you on the next video. Bye-bye.